Hi! How you doing? I have a confession to make. I have a secret weapon that I've never told you about. My secret weapon is a person. I'm not going to name them because I've tried to get them on the channel and they refused. They aren't really interested in being at the front, the public face, if you like. But they are a fantastic researcher with an absolute wealth of knowledge about all the sorts of things I like to talk about here. Many years ago, when I was really just getting seriously into researching pugilism and folk wrestling, I spent a lot of time contacting libraries, private collections, that kind of thing, looking for source material, seeing if I could unearth anything new. At every turn, a guy by the name of Ken Frenger had been there before me. I'd find something I thought was new, only to find out that he'd transcribed it 5 years earlier. We became friends and even taught a workshop together some years back. Then he tragically died, and I stopped finding his name everywhere I went. I miss that guy. But now I find another person has been there before me. Initially, it was a little irritating, if I'm being honest, but then it twigged what an amazing resource this could be. And it turns out that they really are, because only today they sent me through the most wonderful thing I've read in a long time. And I figure the best thing is for me to just read it to you.
Oh, story time?
This is an account of a fight from 1840. It's not clear whether they would class it as up and down fighting or just Lancashire wrestling, but it certainly questions a lot of things we think are true about the arts that catch came from. I'll read it. 1 second. Just need a little bit of coffee before we go. We had not, however, been at peace long ere the carders in the next room again quarrelled and proceeded to that length that a battle was determined upon. Lights of candles and pitch rope and bog pine were procured, and the combatants, stripped and accompanied by every man, went into a small plot of ground behind the house. The combatants were our friend the poacher and another man, younger and heavier, who chiefly earned his living by dog breaking and understrapping to gamekeepers and their masters. Betwixt the men there had been an unfriendly feeling for some time, and now, over this potent ale, for it was good, although new, their hostility was again excited, and probably decided. The ring was formed with as much silence as possible, the men stripped to their waists, and then kneeled down and tied their shoes fast on their feet. Then they dogged for the first grip, much as gamecocks do for the first fly, and after about a minute so spent they rushed together and grappled, and in a moment the dogman gave the poacher a heavy kick on the knee, and was at the same time thrown violently on the ground on his back, his antagonist alighting on him like a bag of bones. It was now a ground fight for some time, and exhibited all the feats of a Lancashire battle, which I take to have been derived from a very remote date, long before the art of self-defence, or indeed almost any other art, was known in these islands. There was not, however, any of that gouging of the eyes, or biting of the flesh, or tearing or lacerating other parts, which are so often imputed to Lancashire fighters by Cockney sportsmen and others, who know little about them. It was all fair play, though certainly of a rough sort, and as thorough a thing of the kind as I had ever seen. Doggy, after gaining breath, tried to turn on his belly, which Poacher aimed to prevent, pressing the wind out of him by his weight upon the chest as he lay across him, and at times throttling him until his eyes stared as if they were looking into another world. In one of those suffocating agonies, Doggy flung around one leg and locked it in one of his opponents, and in a moment they were twisted together like the knot of a boa constrictor. And the next, Doggy turned on his belly and got upon his knees. There was a loud shout and much cursing and swearing, and several bets were offered and taken as to the issue of the contest. Poacher now laid all the weight he could on Doggy's head and neck to prevent him from getting upright. He grasped him below the arms and kept clutching his throat, and the latter, for want of breath to carry on with, kept tearing his hands from their grip. Both snorted like porpoises, and it began to appear that our friend Poacher was the worst for wind. Some heavy kicking now ensued, until the white bones were seen grinning through the gashes in their legs, and their stockings were soaked in blood. Poacher was evidently a brave man, although now coming second. In one of his struggles, Doggy freed himself and rushed on Poacher with a kick that made the crew set their teeth and look for splintered bones. And Poacher stood it, though he felt it. There was another clutch and a sudden fling in which Poacher was uppermost, and Doggy falling with his neck doubled under. He rolled over and lay without breath or motion, black in the face and with blood oozing from his ears and nostrils. All said he was killed, and that opinion probably softened the shout of triumph which was set up by those who had won their bets. That's where the bit that's relevant to us finishes. For what it's worth, he isn't dead, just unconscious. But either way, it's a really interesting look at what the sort of fighting that was going on at the time looked like. Obviously, they started standing. There was clearly some shin kicking and a couple of throws, though not described well enough for us to figure them out, sadly. There was definitely something in there that sounded very much like wrestling up from half guard, and there was a kind of headlock that allowed for a strangle of some kind. I'd guess probably a guillotine, though there was a specific mention of the fact that it was a much more gentlemanly fight than people might expect, which I think is quite telling, though there was a couple of instances of throttling. All very interesting stuff. I think it's safe to say that we're getting closer to understanding exactly what the forerunners of catch wrestling actually were, and what they looked like. When I say we, obviously I mean my secret researcher. Clearly they're the one doing the work. I just read it. So, over to you. What do you think? Was that really half guard in Lancashire wrestling? Were there really attempts to make the other person submit? Stick something in the comments and let me know. I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say. If you haven't subscribed, then shame on you. Get that button clicked, and then maybe sign up to channel membership. There are currently 19 short instructional videos up for members here to watch, with another 6 coming over the next few days. And to those of you still here at the end of the video, fight team!